Most people have been taught to feel a little ashamed of taking Social Security at 62. I think that shame has cost American households a fortune. A smaller check taken at the right time can be smarter than a larger check taken too late. A 30% reduction on paper is not always a 30% mistake in real life. Sometimes it is the cleanest move on the board. The real mistake is not filing at 62. The real mistake is pretending that one answer fits every life. I have spent a lifetime watching people worship the biggest visible number in the room. In markets, in business, in compensation, and now in retirement they stare at the projected benefit at 70 as if the largest monthly check automatically means the best decision. That is lazy thinking. It confuses size with fit. It confuses a headline number with a working plan. I do not think about Social Security as a trophy for patient people. I think about it as a contract. And like every serious contract, this one has clauses. Most people know only one clause. Wait longer and the monthly payment rises. That clause is real. But it is not the whole agreement. There are other clauses buried in the fine print of real life. Health, spouse timing, survivor income, portfolio risk, work limits, future guaranteed income, plain necessity. If you ignore those clauses and optimize only for the biggest monthly check, you can make a decision that looks intelligent on a spreadsheet and foolish inside a real household. That is why I want to drag this subject out of the world of slogans and put it back where it belongs, inside actual life. For anyone born in 1960 or later, full retirement age is 67. Claim at 62 and the benefit is cut by roughly 30%. Wait until 70 and you can reach about 124% of your full benefit. Those are the numbers everyone repeats. They sound decisive, they sound final, but numbers without context are one of the oldest ways to trick yourself. If your full retirement benefit would be $4,000 a month, taking it at 6 the 2nd of May drop it to about $2,800. Waiting until 70 may lift it to about $5,200. That spread is large enough to make most people stop thinking. They see the bigger number and emotionally surrender to it. But the contract does not pay in a vacuum. It pays over time. And time is where the whole argument changes. I call the first hidden clause the break. Even mirage. People ask the break, even question, because they want certainty. They want one clean age that tells them when waiting wins and when taking early wins. Compare 62 to 67 and the rough break. Even point is around age 78. Compare 62 to 70 and the rough break. Even point is around age 80 or 81. That sounds precise enough to feel comforting. But it is a mirage because it creates the illusion that the right answer is purely mechanical. Break-even math assumes you are solving for lifetime dollars in the abstract. Real people are solving for lifetime usefulness. That is a different equation. A dollar that arrives when you need it can be worth more than a bigger dollar that arrives after the pressure is gone. A check that prevents you from draining your portfolio during a bad market can be worth more than a larger check later. A benefit that lets your household breathe for 8 years can be worth more than a mathematically superior income stream that never had to carry the same burden. I do not dismiss break. Even math, I just refuse to worship it. A man who dies at 76 does not get points for having chosen the strategy that would have looked better at 81. A widow who struggled through her early 60s while waiting for the perfect optimization does not get paid extra for admiring the elegance of the plan. A family that needed income now but delayed for theory is not more sophisticated. It is just more exposed. The contract must fit the life in front of it. That leads to the second clause. I call it the household unlock clause. Many retirement decisions are ruined because people think like isolated individuals after spending their whole lives earning and spending as families. Your spouse cannot collect a spousal benefit until you file for your own retirement benefit. That fact alone destroys a huge amount of simplistic advice. Suppose you are 62 and have a strong earnings record. Your spouse is the same age but has a much smaller benefit or no meaningful benefit at all. If you delay until 70, your household may be giving up years of spousal income while you wait for a larger personal number. On paper, you look disciplined. Inside the household, you may be starving the system of cash it could already be producing. That is not optimization. That is vanity dressed up as patience. I want people to stop asking, what is the highest number I can get for myself? I want them to ask, what is the strongest total income structure for this household over time? That question is better because it is harder. It forces you to think like an allocator, not like a collector. It forces you to see that a family balance sheet does not care which spouse won the monthly benefit beauty contest. It cares what came in, when it came in, and how much strain it removed from the rest of the system. This is the identity flip most people never make. They spend decades as check maximizers, salary maximizers, account balance maximizers. Then they retire and keep using the same mental software. That software is obsolete. In retirement, you are not just maximizing, you are coordinating, you are not trying to prove patience, you are trying to build durable income. The successful retiree is not a bigger check chaser. The successful retiree is a household risk manager. Once you make that shift, early filing stops looking like surrender and starts looking like a tool. The third clause is the longevity honesty clause. No one enjoys this conversation. Most people would rather discuss almost anything else. But if you refuse to price reality into the contract, reality will still collect from you. Average life expectancy is useful for populations. It can be dangerous for individuals. Some people have family histories full of long lives, strong health, and late decline. Other people are carrying chronic illness, physical deterioration, or a pattern of early mortality that would be irresponsible to ignore. Acting as if every retiree should plan around a long and robust future is not noble. It is often delusional. If you are single and your health strongly suggests you are unlikely to live past your mid-70s, early filing can be the rational move, not because you are pessimistic, because you are refusing to build a plan around borrowed assumptions. The higher monthly check at 70 is wonderful if you live long enough to enjoy it. If you do not, then the elegant delay strategy becomes a promise made to a future that never arrived. I have no patience for the idea that realism is somehow inferior to optimism. Good planning is not optimistic or pessimistic. Good planning is specific. If your likely retirement is shorter, the contract should start paying sooner. Social Security was built as retirement insurance. Insurance that arrives after the need is gone is not superior insurance. It is mistimed insurance. Now let me give you the fourth clause, the one most people learn too late. I call it the survivor switch clause. Social Security is not just about the benefit while both spouses are alive. It is also about what happens after one of them dies. That is where survivor math changes the picture completely. When one spouse passes away, the surviving spouse generally keeps the higher of the two benefits, not both. That means claiming strategy is not only about today, income, it is about which income line remains standing later. That opens up cases where filing at 62 can be the smarter move for one spouse, even while the other spouse delays. If the lower earner files early on his or her own record, the household gets some income. Now, if the higher earner delays and locks in a bigger benefit, that bigger benefit may later become the survivor benefit. In other words, the family can collect money earlier on one record and still preserve a larger long-term backstop on the other. That is not reckless, that is coordinated. There are also cases where one spouse's health is clearly weaker and the timing of survivor benefits matters even more. In those situations, you are not really deciding between one benefit and another. You are deciding how income will move through time across two lives, two health trajectories, and one household balance sheet. Anyone who gives blanket Social Security advice without talking about survivor income is leaving out one of the most valuable parts of the contract. That omission is expensive. The fifth clause is the portfolio shield clause. This is where financially comfortable people often make the wrong assumption. They think that because they can afford to wait, they should wait. That sounds sensible until you remember that retirement does not happen in straight lines. Markets do not rise on command. Returns do not arrive smoothly. And the first years of retirement are often the most fragile years in the entire sequence. If you have a sizable portfolio and you have stopped working, every dollar you spend has to come from somewhere. If Social Security is not turned on, the portfolio has to carry more of the burden. That means more withdrawals, more sequencing risk, and more damage if the market happens to be weak early. I have seen people obsess over squeezing a bigger government check out of the future while ignoring the far more dangerous issue in front of them, which is pulling too much from their investments at the wrong time. That is backwards. A smaller Social Security check started at 62 can sometimes act like portfolio armor. It reduces the amount you need to sell. It lowers pressure on the account during drawdown years. It may allow more of the portfolio to remain invested. In some scenarios, that matters more than the larger monthly payment you might have earned by waiting. There is a related version of this that applies to sophisticated investors. Some people truly do not need the Social Security income for spending, and they want to claim at 62 and invest the payments. I understand the logic. If you can compound those cash flows at attractive rates for years, you may outperform the delayed benefit spread. But I want to be very clear, that is not free money. That is an active capital allocation bet. Waiting on Social Security is like accepting a form of guaranteed increase in future income. Claiming early and investing the checks is an attempt to beat that guarantee with market risk for disciplined investors with real experience. It can be legitimate for amateurs intoxicated by past bull markets. It can be a very costly act of overconfidence. The right question is not whether you can imagine earning more. The right question is whether your actual investing behavior is strong enough to justify giving up the guaranteed larger payment later. That is a hard question. It should be. The sixth clause is what I call the bridge clause. Some people know that another stream of guaranteed lifetime income is coming. Maybe a pension starts at 65. Maybe a deferred annuity turns on at 67. Maybe another contract you already own is going to create an income floor in a few years. If that is your reality, Social Security does not have to do the whole job by itself. In that case, claiming at 62 can serve as a bridge. It covers the gap years without forcing you to drain assets heavily while waiting for the next layer of income to begin. Once the pension or annuity arrives, your structure changes. What looked like an early claim was never really about desperation. It was about building continuity. A good income system does not care whether each cash source is fashionable. It cares whether the whole machine runs smoothly. The same logic applies to people who simply cannot work past 62. I call that the necessity clause. And I want to say something plainly because a lot of good people carry unnecessary shame around this. If your body is worn down, if your career has ended, if age has made comparable employment unrealistic, and if you need the money, then Social Security is doing exactly what it was built to do. There is nothing dishonorable about using insurance when the insured event arrives. Too many people talk about filing at 62 as if it proves impatience, weakness, or failure. That is nonsense. A roofer with broken knees at 62 is not making a character mistake by filing. A nurse whose back is given out is not failing the retirement test. A laid-off worker who cannot get rehired at a living wage is not less intelligent because the spreadsheet ideal no longer fits. A retirement plan that ignores the body, the labor market, and reality is not a plan. It is a daydream that said, I also want to tell you when 62 is usually the wrong move, because discipline matters more when people are excited by a contrarian idea. If you are still working and earning substantial income, early filing is often a bad idea before full retirement age. There is an earnings limit in 2026. It is $24,480. Earn beyond that while taking benefits early, and part of your benefit can be withheld. You end up accepting a permanent reduction while also creating unnecessary chaos in the near term. That is not strategic early filing. That is sloppy filing. If Social Security will be the main pillar of your retirement income, you should think very hard before taking the reduced amount at 62. When the government check is your foundation, every extra monthly dollar matters. The difference between a reduced benefit and a maximized one is not a theory then. It is rent, food, heat, medicine, and margin. People with little else should usually protect that floor as much as possible. And if you are in strong health, come from a family of long-lived people, and have the means to delay. The math often does favor waiting. I have no ideological objection to delay. My objection is to blind delay. If the conditions genuinely support it, waiting can be excellent. A better rule is not always file early, and it certainly is not always wait. The better rule is match the contract to the life. That is what adults do. Now let me tell you how I would actually make the decision. First, I would pull the statement and write down the three real numbers, the projected benefit at 62, at full retirement age, and at 70. Not opinions, not headlines numbers. Then I would decide whether Social Security in this household is foundation income or supplemental income. If it is foundational, I would lean harder toward protecting the monthly amount. If it is supplemental, I would be more open to using it as a timing tool. Then I would force an honest longevity discussion, not a dramatic discussion. An honest one: family history, current health, work capacity, spouse health, expected length of retirement. People make terrible decisions because they insist on fantasy inputs. After that, I would model the household, not the individual, who can claim what when spousal benefits unlock, what the survivor benefit looks like, which spouse should protect the higher benefit, how much total income enters the house under each path. Then I would look at the portfolio. If claiming at 62 reduces withdrawal pressure during the most fragile years of retirement, I would give that real weight. If the portfolio is so strong that it does not matter, fine. But I would prove that, not assume it. Then I would review every other guaranteed income line that may appear later: pension, annuity, rental, contract, anything that changes the role Social Security has to play between 62 and 70. And finally, I would ask the most important question in the whole process. Am I delaying because it truly improves the life of this household? Or am I delaying because a larger future check flatters my sense of discipline? That question makes people uncomfortable because it exposes motive. A shocking number of people are not optimizing retirement. They are optimizing for the feeling of having made the respectable choice. That is a dangerous habit. Respectability does not pay bills. Respectability does not reduce sequencing risk. Respectability does not make bad health disappear. Respectability does not unlock spousal income. Reality pays, structure pays, fit pays. Once you understand that, the whole conversation changes. You stop treating age 62 like a defeat. You start treating it like a lever. Sometimes that lever should be pulled, sometimes it should not. But either way, the decision should come from the full contract, not from a slogan repeated by people who do not know your marriage, your body, your account balances, or your odds. The big lie in personal finance is that the smartest answer is always the one that sounds hardest. Wait longer, defer longer, endure longer, squeeze harder. Sometimes that is right. Sometimes the disciplined move is to wait. But sometimes the intelligent move is to collect the cash flow that fits your real life and stop apologizing for it. That is why I never ask first. How do I get the biggest check? I ask. What makes this retirement strongest? That is a much better question because it leads to a much better kind of answer. So if you are standing at 62, staring at the statement, feeling pulled between fear and pride, strip the emotion out of it and face the contract. Honestly, look at your health. Look at your spouse. Look at your portfolio. Look at your future income floor. Look at whether you can still work. Look at what happens if you die earlier than the spreadsheet wanted you to. Then decide, not with shame, not with borrowed dogma, not with social media bravado. Decide like a capital allocator, because this is not a test of patience. It is a test of judgment. And the people who win are not the ones who automatically wait the longest. They are the ones who understand exactly what they are buying, exactly what they are giving up, and exactly which life their decision is meant to protect.